learn programming in of all the real languages out there that we can pick. Because I think both Python, which would be my other pick, and JavaScript are a little bit too weird in the basics. And I wouldn't, if I was teaching a course, I wouldn't want to have to explain the weird basics, whereas I think I could go a long time without explaining any weirdness for just doing the basics in Swift.
Yeah, until you do something wrong.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, there's no JavaScript plate like this, so there you go.
We are sponsored this week by Bluevine. Running a business is filled with unexpected events that require sudden cash flow. Bluevine can help you secure cash fast. Applying online is easy growth with a line of credit of up to $250,000. Whether you need money to offset some upfront costs, secure new inventory, or maybe pay an unexpected expense, through Bluevine, you can help yourself and your business stay secure for any reason. There's no fee to set up your line of credit, and Bluevine never charges maintenance or prepayment fees. Applying is easy. Just go to getbluevine.com/ATP, fill out a few simple details, and you're done within minutes. Seeing an offer will not affect your credit score, and once approved, funds can be received in as quickly as 24 hours. So you can have peace of mind knowing that funds can be drawn with a click of a button for any business expense. Bluevine has helped more than 20,000 customers and has delivered over $2.5 billion in funds to businesses. Bluevine also has advisors available by phone to answer any questions you might have and help meet your business needs. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and nearly 5-star review on Trustpilot, Bluevine is offering our listeners all you have to do, once again, getbluevine.com/ATP and apply. That's quick, easy, and meaningful help to your business in as little as 24 hours. This promotional offer is subject to terms and conditions that can be found at getbluevine.com/ATP. Thank you so much to Bluevine for sponsoring our show.
Shall we do some Ask ATP?
Let's do it.
So we start with Anthony Scardapani. I should have tried that before reading it just now. I hope I got that right. Anthony writes, today at work we started debating the differences between Mac and Windows on the basis of security. People were discussing having antivirus software like AVG or Kaspersky or etc. on their Windows machines, but there weren't any Mac owners that did the same. Some of the Windows users mentioned that they only use Windows Defender as their defense to malware. Shall we do some Ask ATP?
Let's do it.
So we start with Anthony Scardapani. I should have tried that before reading it just now. I hope I got that right. Anthony writes, today at work we started debating the differences between It made me realize that macOS doesn't really have any in-your-face software that is quote-unquote protecting you at all times. Anthony writes, I understand macOS has built-in security like Xprotect and Gatekeeper. Is this software essentially doing the same thing as other antivirus software? Also, do you think that macOS is really better at defending malware or viruses beyond the fact that there are less machines running macOS versus Windows? If so, how? There's a lot here, but no, there's no real antivirus that comes with macOS that I'm aware of, or am I crazy?
I mean, as this person mentioned, just Xprotect, really. But Xprotect is really doing, I think it is basically serving as antivirus. Like it is a system thing that runs in the background all the time that silently downloads updates from Apple whenever there is one, and that can be used to target and block the execution of binaries with certain signatures. And that's what antivirus programs do, as far as I know. John?
XP days, but much more so now because Microsoft has gotten very serious about security after getting totally reamed on security back in the, what was it, late 90s, early 2000s? I don't know how years work.
Talk about long-term reputation damage. Like, Microsoft had horrible security on Windows basically for, 20 years at least or longer? Like it was until... When did they introduce Windows Defender, which was like their built-in antivirus stuff? That was not that long ago.
Right, but like their security problems were there, but didn't come and bite them until it all landed at once, right? So yeah, maybe they had like lax security for a long time, like everybody else in the industry, but because they were so prominent and dominant, they bore the brunt of this big security catastrophe, and then they got serious about security after that. So they acted as quickly as possible. It's just that people kept running Windows XP, right, so, for a long time. But yeah, for the antivirus stuff, like what the difference is they're thinking of programs that run on your computer and periodically and or continuously wander over every single file on your computer and say, let me look at this file. Is there anything bad in here? Nope. Okay. Let me go to this file. Is there anything bad in here? Nope. Okay. And then beyond that, say, every time you do any file IO on anything or try to launch anything or whatever, this third-party program jumps in and says, you're trying to write to this file? Who are you? Are you allowed to write to this file? You're trying to launch this program? Is it okay to launch this program? Let me look at this program. Right? Which is more invasive than XProtect. Like that's the general complaint of, the Mac users at a big corporation have to run antivirus software is that, it's destroying my computer. It's killing my battery life because it is literally looking at every single file on your computer, right? Or when you're trying to do lots of file I/O. For Dropbox, because it is intercepting or doing something on every single bit of file I/O. Like Dropbox drinks from the FS Events fire hose, and it can actually slow down I/O significantly. So if you're worried about that, quit Dropbox and then do whatever. Anyway, those programs absolutely do exist for the Mac. I personally hate all of them, even the quote unquote good ones, because they screw with my Mac. Because I feel like they're doing something that I don't need to be done. Like I've never voluntarily run that kind of antivirus software on my Mac. And I doubt it. I think it's mostly, right now, Windows has pretty good security, and I think so does the Mac, because the Mac OS X sort of grew up in an era when Windows was getting slammed with security threats. So Apple took that lesson to heart, even though it wasn't happening to them, right? So I think the security of it's probably fine, but bottom line is that it is a less popular operating system that is less profitable to exploit. Mac users run any kind of antivirus software because I think the antivirus software itself is more of a problem than viruses will be. But that doesn't mean you're not vulnerable. It just means that I think that's the correct balance for most people, because these antivirus programs, they make the experience of using a Mac worse. They're complicated, they're buggy. I used to get kernel panics from one of them that I had to run at work. They slow your computer down, they kill your battery, and in practice, thus far, being a Mac user since 1984, I have never needed one.
Well, I hope you knock on some wood. Chris Wright writes, Marco, you said you have
effect set. Slightly in the blog post, I think mostly in a footnote, but basically, Voice Boost 2 is a whole effect set. It can apply lots of different effects in lots of different configurations. What ships in Overcast is basically a preset. That's like, here's one configuration of this engine. It is applying the loudness, the compressor, and the EQ. What I have been processing my files through all these months that I've been testing this is a command line utility that I've been, that basically is like a test harness for the Voice Boost 2 engine. And I can specify as arguments to that command line utility which of the filters to engage and with which settings. So I'm not actually engaging all of Voice Boost 2. I'm engaging parts of it. Specifically, what I'm processing our files through is I'm processing each individual track, each of our 3 voice tracks, through the loudness normalizer to a certain loudness, and applying a custom EQ to each of our tracks based on each of our voices and microphones to make us sound good. And I do all that just like with an automated shell script that runs this command line utility, and every time I process the files. And so out of that, I get 3 tracks that have been all normalized to the same volume and have had our personal EQs applied. What the Overcast app is doing is applying the loudness matching thing, and then also a little bit of compression and a little bit of EQ. And the EQ it's applying is a very gentle, all-purpose, broad appeal EQ that's going to do a small tweak to make most voices sound a little bit better, but is not especially severe and not especially targeted to any particular voice. So if that's basically, if it's double applied, like, by me having done loudness matching first and then applying EQ in my pre-process, and then having the Overcast app play back those files and possibly apply voice boost if the user has it enabled, the loudness matching part of it is actually not going to be changed much at all, because voice boost 2 reads the loudness first and then decides how much to adjust it. And so if it's already at the target loudness, voice boost 2 doesn't really do any adjustment there. So there is not much of an effect in double applying loudness normalization. For the in the Overcast default configuration, because those are such subtle EQ tweaks, the fact that they're being applied to a podcast like mine that I believe is already well EQ'd, they're by design configured to be pretty subtle and to not be a massively noticeable change on already well produced all the time, are listening to professionally made shows that probably don't need a lot of EQ and probably don't need a lot of volume leveling. So part of the design of Voice Boost 2 was to be like a gentler touch, and especially to be dynamic with the volume leveling and to not apply more. It doesn't really do that much, with the sole exception of the EQ, which is pretty subtle.
Simoisto writes, how do you guys use show notes as a listener? Before or after listening? Well, thank you for noticing, because the show notes are done by me with Marco tweaking and John occasionally adding some missing stuff from time to time. So thank you. How do I use them as a listener? Generally speaking, I will at least glance at some point, but I usually only take a deep dive if I'm looking for a particular link of something that's mentioned on the show. I also feel like, thanks to Forecast and some of the work that Marco has done, I miss out on a little bit because I don't often pay attention to show art, which can change during an episode. And I think it's mostly like us and some of the Relay folks that do that. I don't know, Marco, if you know some other good examples, but Marco is very good about putting in relevant chapter art for each of our chapters. And sometimes there's some really good gags there that because I am not listener.
I'm mostly, so in the podcast I listen to, people will refer to them. We do it all the time. The link will be being discussed on a show and it's visual. And even if they don't mention it, if I listen to the show, when they talk about this, that someone got a new car and they're talking about, the new car and the new something in the new car. If I know this is the kind of show where there's going to be pictures in the show notes of that car, I will then pick up my phone and go to the show notes and see, so I can look at the picture that they're talking about right now. They're talking about the car. I want to see this car. I want to see the color of the seats or whatever, right? And when I know that's going to be there, like shows basically train you. Like you look for it one time and it's not there and there's no show notes. You're like, oh, I guess this isn't a show where they do that, right? And by the way, I think more shows should do this. It seems to me the higher the production values of the show, like multi-million-dollar shows with celebrities that have millions and millions of listeners, no show notes. Nothing.
Nope.
None. They'll be talking for an hour about, my dog made this mess in the kitchen, and they're all looking at a picture of it, and they're sharing a picture, and like, oh, look at this picture. Oh, they talk about the picture for half an hour of the mess their dog made in the kitchen. No way to see that picture. No show notes, no link, no nothing. It boggles my mind. But anyway, that's what makes good show notes, is when you want to know more or want to learn more or want to share in the experience in a way that you can't when it's just audio, go to the show notes, and there should be something there for you. And that's what makes them good. Like, I don't see people like looking at the show notes ahead of time, or even, they're there for you when you want to learn more. And I think that the two reasonable ways to do it are in real time while you're listening, go to them so you can share an experience. And then at the end, oh, what was that app they talked about? That did the thing. I don't remember. And they go to the show notes and find it. And, occasionally we don't put it there. And if we don't, someone sends us a tweet and says, hey, I was looking for the app you talked about. And we'll add it to the show notes later. That's another thing, by the way, that I'm assuming no multi-bazillion-dollar podcast ever does, but that we do all the time. If we forget a link in the show notes, oh, we talked about this app, but we didn't put a link in there, and 3 people ask us, hell, if one person asks, oh, what was that app? We'll add it to the show notes. And good podcast players will notice that we change the show notes and load new versions of them. And bad podcast players will never reload the show notes. And people will say, I still don't see it in the show notes, and we'll have to send them to atp.fm because the show notes on the web will actually update because web browsers know how caching works. So yeah, Like I think good show notes add to the program. I'm angry when they're not there, and I think any way you want to use them is to enjoy the show more, and then afterwards when I remember something they talked about and I want to actually see what it is and follow the link.
Marco?
Like a handful, a very small handful usually, of links that we're making. That's totally fine. As a listener, that's how I use them. I use them as, they're talking about something. These podcasts that have staffs of 30 people working on them, they won't have show notes. They won't do anything. Like they'll have the weakest stuff. You wouldn't believe how many proposals for new standards I hear and get pitched on from major podcast companies that can be solved already by either show notes or chapter markers with links, which it literally almost every month some big podcaster tries to start a new standard. And it's like, you can do this already today in every single podcast app by using chapter markers.
A storm in the rock face. The chaos and reflections of light and life.
By some kind of large, podcast thing a couple of years back about possibly wanting to invest in Overcast. And what they mainly wanted to do was be able to pop up at certain time ranges. Like, you shouldn't be buying anything for this because you can literally do this today. You can get 90% of what you want. Chapter markers can already today in every podcast app display images or links within certain time ranges. That is literally what they do. And it's supported by every major player, including Apple Podcasts, which if you go around trying to get individual podcast apps to add some kind of functionality, you'll never get that many of them, especially on Apple, to add any kind of new standard. But literally the standard already exists and has existed for 15 years. That it's already supported everywhere. Just use it. Do you think they use it today? No. They don't use it at all. And this meeting was 2 years ago. No one knows about these. No one uses them. And I think part of it is a cultural thing. And I think a big part of it is also a tooling and workflow thing. Many of these large podcast producers are using their own custom built CMSs from forever. S probably doesn't even support show notes. Their workflow doesn't support any of this. They don't have file out. The chapter markers, it's just a binary blob of data at the beginning of the file, like all the other ID3 info, and the same little blob that says this file is 19 minutes long. It's very easy to say, all right, I'm inserting an ad at 10 minutes into the file that's 1 minute long. So this chapter marker that's at 11 minutes, I got to move it forward 1 minute. That that's simple logic to do. Forecast Forecast has a feature or whatever it is. That segment reset to 0 or whatever the time is that you have there. That took me 10 minutes to write. This is not a big deal. This is not hard stuff. It's very, very easy stuff. And if you're writing code that chops and dices MP3 files already, it is trivial to
use and appreciate chapters, use the show notes well, and people appreciate it, then they'll stop expecting it of other shows. That's what our listeners say a lot. They'll say, oh, I'm an ATP listener, and when I listen to popular podcast X, I'm disappointed that they don't have good show notes because I'm used to that from ATP, which is great, but there's not that many of those people, right? So as with many of these things, lots of stuff starts in the tech nerd world, and only like the weird hardcore enthusiasts are into it, and it eventually spreads to the mass market. But so far, that has not happened with good show notes and chapters and what do we call the images? Chapter art, chapter images.
Yeah, just chapter images. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we use them. Like I'm like Casey. I feel like sometimes I miss out on gags because I know Marco does a ton of them, but I'm not always looking at my phone. And a lot of the relay shows do them when I can.
Oh, it was accidental. Follow them at CAS.
I sure did. So front and center, such a simple application, no real UI to speak of. It's there, and all the overhead of making an app. This app. Like I said earlier, any app of any sophistication is going to run into tons more of these things and be even weirder or whatever. But for someone who's not a programmer, it may surprise you that such a simple application can have all these complications. So take this as like a microcosm of what programming is actually like. And I'll preface this by saying both of the applications that I made in deal with the Mac operating system does indeed have bugs. Thing to an application. They're supposed to say, bring all the windows from that application to the front. Apple provides these APIs. They're part of the operating system. There's a couple different ways to do it. Most of them are deprecated except for one or two, but that's what they're supposed to do. Either activate this application and just bring it to the front, or activate the application and bring all of its windows to the front. And I have to call those APIs to make my programs work because I don't have any other way to do that. I just have the APIs that macOS provides. The bug is that sometimes you call those APIs and nothing happens. and that's like
there's no failure code, like literally just it just doesn't work.
Nope. It just doesn't happen.
Can you at least do you have any way to detect, can you call the API, like bring this app to front, and then can you check is the app in front like a half second later or something?
You can do stuff like that, but here's the question. What's your recourse then? You're going to call it again?
I guess.
I can tell you, this is the thing. Are you going to call it calling any of these APIs a second or third or fourth time does not help when it stops working. And by the way, you can see this in action by not running any third-party applications whatsoever. And occasionally what will happen is you'll, for example, click on the dock icon for Safari in the dock. It's already running and you're clicking on it because what you want to happen is what's supposed to happen when you click on an icon in the dock, and it's supposed to bring all the Safari windows forward. And you'll click on the Safari dock icon and maybe one Safari window will come forward. Another one is you'll be in an application and you'll select hide others to hide all the other applications. That's a menu command in a lot of Mac applications. Hide others, hide all the other windows that are on my screen. I just want to see the Safari windows. And you'll select hide others, and a couple applications will hide, but a couple won't. And you can pick it again, hide others. Nope. You can pick it again, hide others. Nope. There's Xcode still in the back there. Why am I still seeing my giant Xcode window? I said hide others and I'm in Safari. It's not going to work. Anything having to do with hiding, showing, hide all, show all, hide this application, show this other one, there are bugs. And I have yet to find any kind of workaround for them. And unfortunately, these two applications I made lean heavily on the APIs for hiding and showing applications. So when I call those APIs and they don't work and I don't have a workaround, I get bug reports. So that's just like background noise for all of this. There's nothing I can really do about that right now. But it's just adding to the general malaise of these two applications I chose to make. Now, I knew this going in because I do things like that all the time. I do try to hide others. I do try to click on an application and bring it all to the front. And sometimes it doesn't work. And it's been this way for years. Like nothing to do with third-party applications, just in the Mac OS. I don't remember when it started, but it's just a years-long thing. So I knew going in that this was going to be a struggle. I thought there might be workarounds. So far, I haven't found any. I haven't found any heroics that I can do to make it work. When it stops working, it doesn't stop for all applications most of the time. Usually it stops for one or two of them. Finder and Safari are big culprits, but that may also just be because they're commonly used. I don't have a rhyme or reason for this. So anyway, that's not my adventure. All of that is to say that these two applications that I made that look super simple, inherently what they do is already challenging because it's not always going to work. I think the one war story I will bring out today is an interaction between them that is a complexity that I added that I didn't think of until about midway through development and then just had a very sad face when I did. So, getting to another set of, I'm not going to talk about another set of APIs, but anyway, front and center, you know what it does. Like when you click on a window, it does stuff, it brings all the windows forward, or if you shift click, it just brings one of them, does all that stuff or whatever, right? how Front and Center works is it's able to listen through an API for an event, which is new activation. A new app has been activated. Right. So anytime a new app has been activated, the operating system lets Front and Center know and says, hey, by the way, I know you've just been hanging out there, Front and Center, but here's what happened. A new application has been activated. At that point, Front and Center gets to choose what to do. You can say, oh, if I'm configuring application to the front, right? That's basically what it does. Like, it waits for activations. It doesn't know. And so there's a bunch of weird heuristics that Front and Center has to do to figure out, should I do anything about this, or should I just hang back and not do anything? And it doesn't get notified about every activation, just certain ones. Because, like, for example, if you use like expose or mission control to activate, right? And I did that, and I said, well, Front and Center has that opposite mode where you can do a modern mode, and it does the opposite behavior where shift click works the way click did, and vice versa. So I should do that in Switch Glass too. So that, because if you like using it in the default, be a single window come forward in Switch Glass as well, and that would make it different than the dock, because you can't control that in the dock. When you click on a dock icon, it always brings all the windows forward, in theory, if it's not. And then it occurred to me that if you have Front and Center and Switch Glass installed, and you have their preferences set the opposite way, so if you, it will say, I'm in the mode where I'm supposed to bring a single window forward. So it will go and say, I'm activating Chrome, and I'm bringing a single Chrome window to the front. And then Front and Center will get notified, hey, Front and Center, a new application was just activated. You think you should do something? And Front and Center will say, there was a mouse click. So you see that, like, I could say, this is an invalid use case. Don't set your preferences that way. But they're two different applications, and it seems like a reasonable thing to want to do. When I click on Switch Glass, I just want one window to come forward. But the other times I click, I want all of them to come forward, because that's how I have Front and Center configured. So this is a complication entirely of my own making. But once I realized that it existed, I'm like, this will like end up setting it this way, and they will think it's buggy, and they'll be like, your app doesn't work. I said one window, and every time I click it, they all come forward, right? And I don't want to have to explain to them that don't set your preferences that way or whatever. And I don't have enough information to sort that out on either end, because like when Front and Center gets notified that something was clicked, I don't even know like what event caused that to happen. Like keep track of the last time a mouse was clicked, but I don't know where or why it was clicked. I just know that it was clicked, and I do this time windowing around activations to figure out if that click belongs to a thing. Like it's scary and everything, but it mostly works. Idea if you just clicked on Switch Glass. Like I have no way of knowing that. I can know that you clicked, but I don't know if you like legit clicked on a single Chrome window or if you clicked on the Chrome icon in Switch Glass. I have no idea that happened. And so I need to figure out a way to deal with this. And then the simple application used to be like, I'll make a little palette and there'll be icons and you click on them and I'll call a single API. That all went out the window as soon as I realized this was an issue. Maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe I should have said, you know what? This is, again, an invalid use case, or I'll take away that preference in Switch Glass and you can't run it in that mode. But I'm going to run both applications at once, and I would know that
to me. Listen to the sound of the ocean, the feeling of a world in motion. The light gets up the rocks again. All my life I've been waiting, my fortune sold for a silver lining. My eyes are wide
want them to work together. So yes, that did occur to me and would be more straightforward technically, but I would still be working on that, and I would probably get to a point where I regretted it terribly, because just trying to figure out how to massage the preferences of UI into something sensible would just be, and not from a technical perspective, but just like user interface design. How do I convey to the user how all these different things work? It's hard enough. Like if you look at the switch class preferences, there's a section of it that applies globally, and there's another section that applies just to the display. And I try to label that and try to explain that, but even that, it's not a great interface. Like it's a difficult problem. If you want to have per display settings, but also have global settings, but not have two different preferences things, you end up having to make like a quote unquote real preferences dialog with like the toolbar at the top and the different images. And it's complicated. So anyway, that's enough war stories for this week. I can revisit it in future weeks, because there are plenty more interesting and fun things about developing what looks like a very simple application. But just to give you an idea of the ridiculousness that's lurking under the covers of this thing that lets you click on an icon and bring an app to the front.
Awesome.
Oof. It's so true. I mean, I had the bare bones of PikaView done. Golly, I spent probably a couple of days on the zoom in animation, and I already done almost the exact same thing on Vignette, but I was doing it differently, and I wanted it to work a little differently, and that alone took me days, which is probably an indictment of my own skill in UI programming more than anything else. But that's just not the sort of thing that comes naturally for me. And oh god, there's so much to even the simplest app. And I don't think I have it as bad as you, John, but I run into Apple APIs that are not really as robust as I would like them to be, and not really as bug-free as I would like them to be. And like you, if something happens in an Apple API, like a lot of times Vignette would just stop writing updates because Apple's APIs have decided, no, you're done now. Okay. Like they don't really tell me I'm done. It's just, it doesn't work. And I don't know why. And, the best theory I've had, and I wrote some code to try to slow everything down because maybe I was hammering bug. Maybe Apple didn't design it that way. So in my case, I have a theory that they designed it so that you can only write so much to the contacts database so quickly, which is fine if you tell me what the limit is, but they don't tell you what the limit is.
Welcome to iOS.
Yeah, and well, in you, John, I think you're probably bumping up against legitimate bugs. And so, Apple is made of humans. Humans write bugs, but still, just infuriating because there's nothing you and I can do about it. Or Marco, I mean, all three of us, there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to sit there and go, yep.
If you're lucky, the API that you're running into a problem with will be a commonly used API for normal apps. That's another one of the consequences of me choosing to make these weird apps. Like regular apps don't ever need to call the APIs that bring other applications to the front. Like that is a rare piece of functionality. So who cares if there's some weird minor bugs in it? And I'm saying that from Apple's perspective, but honestly, I care as a Mac user. Set aside all of my applications. Like I'm frustrated when I can't bring all the windows of an app to the front. It happens to me a surprising amount of the time. Again, nothing to do with my apps, just literally clicking on the dock icon for Safari, and I want all my Safari windows to come to the front, and they won't. It's been driving me nuts for years. But if you're writing a text editor, if you're using the Contacts API, that is widely used on iOS. And there's a slim chance that if you file that bug, maybe they'll add in a subsequent release, there's a limit and we'll notify you if you call it too many times, or we'll document it or something like that. But I don't think anything's going to happen for these. Like what I think would happen is more likely to happen is Apple will be like, why do we even have that API? Third-party applications shouldn't be asking for other applications to come to the front. Deprecated. You can't use it anymore. It's going to go away in 2 versions. Like you almost don't want to call attention to those type of APIs because they're like system extension stuff. It's not, you never need to make Microsoft Word. You never need to call those APIs. So, it is what it is.
Tell me what you wanted to be before the waves were crashing, before the winds got louder than the storms inside your head. Send me up a signal tonight. It's quiet. Tell me what you wanted to be before the waves were crashing, before the winds got louder than the storms inside your head. So I'm watching for your signal on the sea. Tell me what you wanted to be before the waves were crashing. It's quiet on the harbor. I'm watching for your signal, honey. All my life I've been waiting my fortune so for a silver lining.
Seen it written that way.
That's right, because you weren't ready to be that late.
I debated between the T and the 7, and I went with the T. But and I can absolutely see the 1. I'm right there with you with the 1. But the plus, I agree with Marco. That came out of left field.
No, usually it's a 7.
You have both attained a new level of eliteness today.
It has to be either a T or a 7.
No, that's the levels 1 and 2. Plus, you go to the next level. It just blows people's minds like he's so elite. He used a plus for a T. That's madness.
So if I command click on Safari, which one would think would on the dock, which one would think would open a new Safari window, would you not? I get a new Finder.
Command click reveals it in the Finder. What are you talking about?
So maybe I'm just a moron because anytime I do that, I get a new Finder window. So I guess I am a moron.
No, when you hold down the Command key in the Finder or whatever, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, well at least I know I'm an idiot and it's expected behavior.
Command Option click on a folder does what click should do on a folder. God, I wish I could change that. Can I get an agreement on that, by the way? Single clicking with the regular plain old left mouse button on a folder that is in your dock should open that folder in the Finder.
Oh, you mean rather than doing the explode out?
Rather than doing one of the other two things it does, neither of which I ever want.
Why do I get a feeling that we're hearing the genesis of app number 2 or 3 or 7 for you?
If only I could do that type of stuff. We don't live in a world where you can hack the dock anymore.
The struggle is real.
But do either one of you use the springy out bendy tower thing or the giant grid of icons that you can never
Bottom and hit show and Finder or whatever. Open
see? Marco, I'm going to give you the advanced technology. Just hold down Command and Option and click on downloads and it will just open.
Oh.
And then you can sort reverse by date and
That is very clever. I did not know that.
Yeah, because I keep
then date modified because sometimes it's possible to get things that unzip and have a modification date that's in the past and they aren't at the top. So if you sort by date added descending and you always Command Option click on the downloads folder, it will open a Finder window. I think that should either be the default behavior or one of the choices. If you like the bendy stack, fine, go for it. If you like the big grid, fine. But what if you just want the window to open in the Finder? That would be nice too.
totally agreed.
I've been Command Option clicking on the now. Yeah, now that I used to use a drag thing dock for this, I used to have no folders in my dock, and I had a drag thing dock that was down in the lower right corner, that had folders in it. And when you clicked on them, they opened their windows in the Finder. That was cool.
You really...
I've got a lot of room for folders in the dock now, and I'm so accustomed to Command Option clicking folders in the dock that it is a pretty ingrained habit. But every once in a while, it bothers me when I remember that I have to keep doing that.
I'm sorry for your struggles, John. Are you... I don't remember. You're a side dock person. Is that right?
Nope.
You're bottom docker. I thought I thought you were, and then I convinced myself, no, John wouldn't do such a barbaric thing. Do you at least hide it automatically? At least?
Nope.
John.
Hidden dock is the worst. I don't want to go down there and wait for a thing. What is this, iOS? I got to drag my finger to the bottom of the screen and then wait? No waiting.
Why, John? Why the bottom?
Because they were too small.
Yes, yeah. On laptops, I always do left side, but on laptops I do auto hide. On desktops, I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, Marco. You're not a lefty, are you, Marco?
No.
No, left side is the correct side.
Left side dock is madness.
Why?
It's just plain. The upper left corner especially on a small screen, is the most prominent location. The dock shouldn't be there. It's an auxiliary thing. It should be far away from the upper left.
It's not there. It's auto hidden.
Hidden dock is also madness.
Hey, let me really piss you off.
Yeah, would you auto hide the menu bar too?
No. Even worse.
No, that's barbaric.
I mean, if you had 11 leave, Genie is the default, right? So then that's what
believe
everyone's
so.
using unless they change it.
Most people are very, very angry when I mention that I use magnification.
Yeah, I don't know.
I quite like it.
I mean, it doesn't actually change the size of the targets, really, or at least width-wise. I could take it or leave it. I don't use it personally, but I don't think it's so terrible.
You are right that I shouldn't give you too much flack since you do have a monitor that's approximately the same size as your main television. But I still think left side's where it's at, personally.
Yeah, I got a lot of windows open these days. Let me tell you.
Speaking of your monitor, that's a perfect segue to begin follow-up. Pro Display XDR reference modes. Would you mind telling me about this?
God, we can't escape this topic. There's just one more thing. I swear, the last one. Last time, someone wrote in about like the about using True Tone and how they endorsed it, and they mentioned this ISO spec, ISO 12646. One of the anonymous experts about the Pro Display XDR chimed in and said one of the reference modes for the Pro Display XDR is exactly for ISO 12646. You can set it to this mode, and then it disables True Tone, and it sets it to this mode that is apparently super warm. And then if you have your room set up the way that ISO spec says you're supposed to have your room set up, there you go. You're all ready to do whatever the hell it was, soft proofing on printed materials. So, boy, you can really just spend all day going through the 800 reference modes supported by this and watching each one of them and going, ugh, that looks weird. It's probably just because your room isn't set up right.
I'm surprised you haven't gone full THX tune-up or whatever it's called on your monitor yet.
Well,
Well done. Oh, my goodness. All right, so no other Mac Pro follow-up? That's it? That's all we have?
I think this, the only other, I mean, if you're asked for some, I do have some. I continue to assess the internal storage situation on my Mac. There are many options for sticking every kind of storage you can imagine inside here. You can put, I think, 6 3.5-inch hard drives in here if you want. You can put in 6 or 7 PCI cards, each of which can hold up to 4 M.2 SSD thingies. You can put in a $400 rack mount thing that you can put 2 3.5-inch drives in or 2 2.5-inch drives. All of these options are very expensive, and none of them I find particularly satisfactory at this moment. I would have already bought that 2-drive Pegasus thingamabobber that Stephen Hackett bought if it didn't cost $400 and come with an 8 terabyte 3.5-inch hard drive that I don't want.
Yeah, that's fair.
I continue. Maybe Stephen will get tired of it and he'll sell his old one to me. I'm looking for them on eBay. Like, I just want the thing with no drives in it. I've got drives. I don't need your drives. I just want a convenient little case to mount things in. And so I'm still waiting on that, and it's kind of frustrating because right now, like, I'm backing up Time Machine to this dinky little external 2.5-inch spinning hard drive that I have. And it's a pain to have to connect it every once in a while and let it do its thing, and I don't want to leave it connected because it's just weird to have it dangling. Anyway, I got a lot of room in my case. Still haven't filled it, and I'm still waiting for the new video cards to come out. They still haven't released the supposed W5700 XT or whatever it is that they've been advertising forever. So, the wait continues, partially on Apple and partially on third-party people. I can't believe that OWC or somebody hasn't just come out with, like, the $50 version of an empty bracket where you can stick drives. Because Pegasus made one, but they just insist on making you buy an 8 terabyte drive for $400, which is kind of cruddy.
I'm so sorry. All right, we should also clear the air with regard to iPad multitasking. I went on a bit of a rant last week, moaning about how I don't care for the way iPad multitasking is, and I think all of us were moaning at some point or another about this. But
us?
I in particular, us, no. I in particular went on a bit of a rant with regard to how you get iPad multitasking to work when you are trying to load something that is not in your dock. And, what I had said was you can go back to the home screen and then pick up an icon, and then it's like doing the little dancey thing, but you don't want it to do the dancey thing, blah, blah, blah. And people pointed out to me that one approach, I'm probably going to get the exact order of operations wrong, but the idea is another approach to handle this is you open app 1, go to the home screen, open app 2, And then app 1 should be on the right-hand side of your dock in that like recents area. And then you can just grab it right there and put it into one of these side panels that you would like it to be in. So that is a little bit better and a little bit easier. And I should have known that. But nevertheless, I still find it to be extremely frustrating.
Unless
and
you have that disabled. I think I have recents disabled.
there is an option to disable it. I'm almost sure. But to be fair, I have not disabled it to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I have disabled it, but I've used that same technique, like trying to launch it again to get it in the, like, I don't know, maybe I have it disabled on some devices and don't on others. But yeah, I have recent apps disabled in my Mac dock and also in every iOS device that I could remember to do it on, because I don't want other stuff filling there. Like I fill the bottom dock with a bunch of stuff, and I don't want other things randomly hopping in there just because I used them recently. So that kind of kills that technique, but I still find myself doing it